So, Alex, name, title, interesting fun fact, and it should be riveting. I learned a lot about you last night, so it should be good.
Hi guys, I'm Alex Monroe, CEO of Dandelion Networks, and my fun fact is, yes, my team is here tonight, and I love them, and I can't go anywhere without them because it's like entourage for us. Oh, okay. Fun fact, if you work with a tech company, you're allowed to wear sneakers. Does that count? I don't like hairless cats, and I am very favorable about Van Halen. How's that? There you go.
Okay, that's a little more interesting. Okay. The hairless cats piece I'll hand you there. You're a little weird, so you get to get it. Niki?
Hi, my name is Niki Eckardt. I am the CEO, president, founder of Netsource Capital.
All right, hold it closer, Niki. Come on, we can't hear you.
What, huh?
There you go. Come on.
That was my fun fact.
We couldn't hear you. You gotta say louder.
Okay, so I am the CEO and president founder of Netsource Capital, as well as Netsource Development and Strategic Positioning for startup companies. And we are heavily involved on an international scale of bringing capital into the Canadian environment, especially in blockchain technologies, as well as other leading edge technologies. Obviously, at this point in time, we're talking about blockchain. There I'm back. Okay. Fun fact, I am a backcountry skier. 25 years in the backcountry. I've been hucking myself off cliffs for a long time. So there you go, that's my fun fact.
I've seen the video evidence of it. It's pretty epic.
Nice.
She's willing to do to her body.
So Pascal Saint-Jean, the president of 3IQ Corp. So for those of you who know our founder, Fred Pai, we're the first to bring a fully regulated crypto product on the exchange in Canada, actually globally. So quite proud of being part of this team. My fun fact is really about empowerment, which is why I'm in this space. I've been in multiple industries that enable people to be more empowered, and I'm a founder of a group in Ottawa, a business group called Futuring, where we come together to help newcomers in Canada get financing and mentoring to take over existing businesses, to keep the business cycle going and enable new individuals to pursue their entrepreneurial dream.
And now something fun.
Oh, fun. I'm learning to fly a plane because I can't deal with Pearson right now.
There we go. All right, and as you all heard, my name is Karrington, Executive Director for the Canadian Blockchain Consortium, largest not-for-profit industry organization servicing blockchain in Canada. But my fun facts, I'm obsessed with cigars. I have a ridiculously large collection of it, and I also am a rum connoisseur. And on the side, I like to hunt and ride my motorcycle, so a little bit of fun.
Where are you from?
Alberta, right?
There we go.
I also drive a truck, so yes, I'm very much stereotypically an Albertan woman. I was born in Vancouver, though, so technically I've expatriated the bougie part of Canada.
One thing I just have to add, the two ladies here are Harley riders.
Yes. Oh. Okay, I got one guy over there was like, yeah. Everyone else was like, what the frick? All right, I promise not too much cursing on this panel. All right, so we're going to get into some interesting dialogue, some conversation here. So our first question to the panelists. The growth of the new Web3 Layer 1 platforms and DeFi applications is creating a new generation of unicorns and points towards a more truly decentralized future for crypto. Where do you see the big opportunities in Web3, and how can governments regulate it effectively? Because everybody loves regulation, right? Everybody? There we go, yeah, a couple people are like, yeah, there we go, give it to me.
Sure. So yeah, I guess let's split that too. I always like to ask people, and by the way, Adam did a great job at kind of defining a vision for Web3. Web3 is still not really clearly defined, so we have to sometimes ask our questions, what is our expectation? Is it decentralization? Is it the use of blockchain? Is it the use of tokenomics? For me, I always like to say it's the empowerment of individuals by the decentralization of data, at the same time the monetization of the use of the blockchain. So can we own part of the chain? Can we own our own data? Can we monetize our data? So to me, resonates very much with what Adam was sharing. I'm not trying to repeat what was already shared, but I'm a strong believer in that, is that is the future of where it's going. So where does regulation come into that? Well, ideally, from that perspective, there's a technology front, and then there's the monetization front. If we look in the past, there was a lot of regulation back in the internet, back in the early days. If we let technology go and just continue to evolve, we're going to see some spectacular innovation on the technology front. I think the regulation has to come more on the monetization front in terms of does the token make sense? Does the token add value to the empowerment or the mission statement that the chain's trying to do? So for me, I'm really trying to see is, can government-led technology continue to innovate and make sure that from the monetization perspective, it empowers and secures investors?
So yeah, with DeFi, I really believe in it. I really want to see the centralized ways move to the wayside. I think we all deserve to have the power of who we are as individuals. We need to be the ones that need to be able to really take advancements in understanding how we share our data. And of course, we're just kind of repeating everything as it is right now. But I also believe too, that once we can start to take power and control back, we can actually make significant change even in our political structure and everything else. So I'm very much that side of it, as by saying let's take the power from the people in high places and let's bring it back to real society and the people and who we are. I think that's extremely important. And then from a regulatory perspective, I think, you know, a lot of myself as being a venture capitalist and investing in projects, regulation is going to be extremely important. And at this point in time, I actually have to admit I hold back on investing in projects purely because of the fact that the regulation is not in place yet. So we really truly need to have regulation. I'm hoping that it comes soon. It should be very interesting to see how the big institutional companies come in and institutional investors come into the play. That is really going to determine how crypto takes off in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, those are all really good perspectives, because I think for those of us who've been in DeFi even for just a year, 2 years, 10, you have this real sense that there's that libertarian strength of this industry that says, you know what, regulations, And I will also add, as a layer one, we, from day one, kind of say there's no need to regulate anything that we're involved with. However, when we talk to Interact or we talk to any international remittances or things like that, for us, we actually have AML and CTF at like the top of our minds all the time. So it's kind of a strange thing for us because we're tech first, but we also have a theme of that kind of, you know, there are people stories on the other side. And as long as regulators come in with the thought of, whom am I protecting? We can match that step for step. So we're in this funny conundrum of, we want there to be as little regulation as possible so that we can see some new ideas flourish. We can see things advance and we can see a whole bunch of these different models come out, but we can't lose that humanitarian bent, and we won't.
And this is where I was talking about the technology versus the tokenomics or the monetization. So back when the internet was scaling and all the different protocols were coming together, the W3C was formed to try to create some form of university protocols. I'm not saying that every blockchain needs to be the same, but at some point I would hope to see layer ones come together and create more interoperability and more ways to collaborate, because right now I'm seeing regulators catch up and I'm seeing layer ones compete and kind of fight against each other, and no one's really at a point where it's so large that there's a clear winner. So I feel that if the technologists don't come together, then the regulators will catch up, and at that point, we're giving control back to government. So hopefully, you guys come together and figure it out.
No pressure. Thanks.
Remember,
Put it all back on layer ones. Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept because I think it was like Bitcoin 2021, and they had a panel, and the whole panel was talking about stopping Bitcoin hyperinization or something, because the whole goal was, we don't want it to go grow so big that it gets such mass adoption before there's enough technology on that chain so people can truly still stay anonymous, so you can still do peer-to-peer. Because regulation is catching up to the point where the whole purpose of something like Bitcoin was decentralized, peer-to-peer, sound money that couldn't be controlled by government, but the technology is not advancing fast enough for that to continue still happening. So their whole goal was stop it so we can slow down, develop out that technology so it can still kind of fit with the idea of what it was supposed to do. I don't know about you guys, I remember the wild, wild west of the ICO days, and everyone's like, it's not regulated, it's okay, we can do anything, don't worry, government won't come after you. And it was like, oh my God. I was like, really? You guys are gonna go to jail. A lot of them did, actually, the ones that just, no regulation. All right, so second question. The path to government regulation of this industry has been a long one. I know some of us count as OGs. If you were here anything before 2017, you get to count as an OG. But it's also been a lot of hard work and a lot of cross-sector collaboration. I know with us, we're always dealing with government, we're engaging with regulators, we're engaging with banks, trying to move these dials forward. And we're finally starting to get some clarity on digital currencies and assets. So I'm curious, in your opinion, what's kind of the regulatory landscape potentially going to look like by the year like 2028, 2030?
Sure, happy to start again. It's all good. So again, we really set the tone here. Our founder really challenged regulation here in Canada and created sort of an environment that allowed a lot of us to prosper. I think Canada has this opportunity right now compared to other countries to really take this advantage and try to set it forward. So I don't know what regulation looks like in 5 years, let alone 8. But I can tell you, to Niki's point earlier, is if it doesn't come, or I think it is going to come, but as it does come, if it doesn't come, the money doesn't flow. And I know it's really hard. Like I've lived this through the birth of the web in my previous life and the birth of open source in my previous life, where the people who found it fight the growth and the adoption and sort of the commercialization of it. But I can tell you that the true empowerment, or the true benefits that everyone dreamed about of what blockchain can be will only come once it has mass adoption. And that does require capital, and it requires clarity and regulation. So all I could say is I'm pro-regulation because it will bring more money, more clarity, more innovation, and it will empower, it will trickle down to everyone, and it will, I strongly believe that it will benefit those that we all know it can benefit, because that's where we're here.
Yeah, no question, and I have to agree with Pascal here because, well, we're from the same generation. Back at the beginning of the internet, I can remember being involved in 1992, and everybody was suing the shit out of everybody. Pardon the language, but that's exactly what was going on, right? This is what it's all about. We saw individual companies coming to the forefront, being worth millions of dollars. Look at the AOLs. Look at all of these other institutions. They fell. Exactly, right? They fell all by the wayside. And we are seeing something very, very similar. I only thought I would see this once in my lifetime, but now I'm seeing it a second time. It's just right back to the same thing again, right? We're going through the same process, and I think it's important that we do so. There's going to be players that are going to make it up to the forefront. They're going to fall away by the wayside, and sooner or later, we're going to have an even keel system that comes into play. I think regulatory is something that, like I said already, I am very much for. I think it has to be in place. I just think we have to be very, very careful, and so that we as an industry have the ability to talk to the regulators and work together with them to ensure the fact that when we move these things forward, it's going to be in a very proactive way. And I think that's so, so important.
I'm going to kind of push back on you guys in the same way that, so my background was a little bit more on the IAM and the digital ID and verified credential side before Dandelion. And from that perspective, it's the question of, do we want digital identification? Do we want national IDs? How do we want to institute these things? And that thematically was really, it was a challenge, because that meant there could be so much more regulation around every aspect of your individual existence. There's a philosophical challenge we face with that. So having said it, the regulatory environment's going to come. It's going to settle tokens as either securities or utility. It's going to come and it's going to figure out how to tax and how to GST, HST, everything. So that's going to happen. But when you get into some of the other aspects, for example, how Web3 is about, as Adam had alluded, how do you have a wallet that can connect to everything from your bank account to your health card? How do you manage that? There are some protocols, and certainly people are looking at protocols where it can all be held off-chain, but there's still going to need to be some degrees of traceability and auditability, reversibility. These are things that haven't really been addressed at all, and I think from a regulatory perspective, it would just behoove us all if the regulator came in with the idea of, I'm going to make sure that people are maintained safe, rather than how can we monitor and control everything, because that's not necessarily the same thing.
So this is where, what I said earlier, coming together on the technology front creates critical mass to make sure that doesn't happen, right? So I agree with you, taxation, exactly, security or not. In terms of how technology operates, we saw this, Niki and I were talking about earlier, in every other technology innovation. People have to come together. I'm just not seeing that right now in the space. Everyone's trying to compete to get their token at the top. So how do we come together to make sure that we are doing the right thing to make sure that regulators don't come in and dictate the technology front.
So I would have to counter, because what I'm seeing, like especially through our consortium, is in this particular industry, so many players are actually willing to come to the table and work towards similar goals, like how do we get access to banking, how do we get access to insurance, how do we educate the regulators, and like with us, we have definitely competing organizations that would, like they are competitors with themselves, but all sitting on a committee within our organization dealing and engaging with regulators to go, we need to push this forward as an industry as a whole. And I'm seeing that a lot stronger here than I would see in like a traditional industry like oil and gas and some of the other ones. So I'd push back a bit on that. Maybe the token producers are doing that because yeah, everyone wants their coin to float to the top, but.
Well, that's something.
Yeah, but there's kind of a challenge because on the one hand, we're so excited about all the innovation in this space, and by dint of having that innovation, it means that you're going to have this wellspring of a whole bunch of brand new ideas. The catch to that is that some of them are going to have to compete against each other invariably, and so yeah, you've got, I mean, we can all say the truth is that everything in crypto is kind of tribal, everybody breaks down into their ecosystems. How do you bridge between them? It's not done through an interchain. It's done through a little bit of attrition and a little bit of, coming together in exactly these kind of organizations to set up standards for how we can interop together.
So I think we're all agreeing we have to come together. I would agree with that.
Well, a little.
I think one of the things that I want to mention, and I think it's very important that we do so, because we talk a lot about crypto, a lot of different protocols and everything else. They've got a lot of great projects being built on them and all of that sort of stuff, but we also have to worry about scenarios when government intervention comes in. We talk about CBDCs. We talk about that potential danger. And it's really easy to say, well, we can throw a wallet together and we throw all of this information into it and everything else, but where is that privacy? Where is that, and how is that going to be monitored? And that is one thing that really concerns me. We take a look in China right now, we see what's going on there. They're already doing test markets, they're already controlling factors in those areas. And I think that even though we, as panels and everybody in the room, we're all very proactive towards blockchain, we really want to try to move things forward, even in collaboration and everything else, but we always have to remember too, there is a big lurking danger out there that needs to be, and we all have to be aware of this. And it's something that, when you even take a look at the Hamilton project by MIT that was being done for the federal government in the US, and now they're going back to that project and they're looking how they can build that out more. So it is something we have to be very aware of.
Well, it's something I share all the time. I know we're going a little bit off track, but just to educate everyone, it's like, blockchain does not equal decentralization. Blockchain is a database system. Decentralization is a network configuration. Both together create the power that we believe crypto can bring. But we need to be able to make sure we use the right terms, the right moment, because yes, CBDCs are a centralized blockchain. It's not the same as what we're talking about here, which is Web3 decentralization.
Absolutely. So just off track for a second. One, thank you so much, Adam and Virgo. This event is lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed the food. I think I ate someone else's food that was sitting there. So another round of applause for Virgo. And Robert, if at any point in time I'm running over because I don't know exactly what my start time to finish time was, if you need to pull the cane and pull me off stage, absolutely. If not, I'll go for one more question. Oh, look at that. We get to go over. Okay, that means we're the fun panel, right? Are we the fun panel?
It's the shoes.
No, it's my shoes specifically. I wore the heels tonight. The rest of you, with your crypto bros runners. I like that. Thank you. All right. That was supposed to be a clap for me.
No, it's for my
Okay. So our third and final question of the night. This is my favorite topic, of course, because you know me and my Bitcoin. So El Salvador was the first government to legislate Bitcoin as a national currency, and others are starting to follow, like the Central African Republic. Will the future of crypto as a national currency be established currencies like Bitcoin, CBDCs, or a combination of both? Dear freaking God, please do not be a central bank digital currency, but I'd like your views.
I'm just going to start by saying, let's hope so, because if they do go down the CBDC route, and we've done a lot of research on this, we get all the people and players, it's problematic. It is, but on the other hand, we don't know that Bitcoin's the answer. We have a different thesis on that, and some people are maxis in here, I got it, we're cool. But in the end, thank gosh that somebody's saying we're going to detach a little bit from what seems to be this duopoly between Chinese and US arguing about what's going to be the reserve. Could change it.
Maybe gold.
Could be. When we talk about Bitcoin, of course, obviously we look at a very powerful mechanism, and I'm so grateful that it was created because it's given us an opportunity to really explore and expand. One of the things with Bitcoin, when you talk about Bitcoin and being utilized by countries and that, I very much see that we are at a capped amount. And I think that's going to be very interesting to see how that goes, and that it could be the very end baseline of what, like you had said, gold basically, but this is a new gold, okay? And do I see it as being in retail? I mean, even when countries are starting to bring it into their ecosystems, and we see it already, we're starting to look at even BlackRock and mentoring up with Coinbase. We start to see how this is starting to happen. A lot of the, institutional firms are going to start to pick all of this stuff up. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly where Blockcoin fits, or Bitcoin fits. I think it's going to be amazing. Bitcoin holder since 2014, just letting you know. Been around for a while. No, I had to plug that. I'm sorry.
You've just been driving it around the block just a few times.
Just love that, right? It's very powerful.
I'll go a little quick there. He's getting a little nervous over there, so it's all good.
He's got the hook out.
So two things, right? So countries who have central banks, ideally the technology providers establish, whether it's stablecoins or partnership with technology providers and banks, to be able to outpace the concept of CBDCs. And for countries that do not have a central bank, I think Bitcoin is the ultimate solution. Not a maxi, although I'm wearing Bitcoin socks. Not a maxi. But basically, you're adopting as a country a pre-programmed, basically monetary policy, which is something that you adopt US dollar or any other, or the euro or the one that you do not have a control over. So there's room for both, but ideally Bitcoin for those who have central banks, and for those who do, technology wins the day, hopefully.
And I think they'll be the winners. Take a look at Hungary. I think these countries are way ahead of the game. A lot of people are dissing them and everything else, but I think it's the way of the future.
Which one? Is Hungary adopting Bitcoin or a central bank digital currency on this side? Oh, they're just adopting everything.
Yes.
Oh, well, look at them go. All right. They're hungry. I get it. They're hungry. Hungry, very hungry. Do you have any like pearls?
No, because otherwise it just wades into the maxi of Bitcoin or not. And in the end, yeah, who knows? But it's the countries that are going to do it. It is a clear sign of we want to get a little bit untethered from the purse string holders of yore. So it's kind of cool to see that some of these countries are breaking their own way, and they're willing to take a ride on the technology.
Well, maybe just they just appreciate sound like money and good solid economics policy. When your government can consistently like push a button, issue out more ones and zeros, and hyperinflate your currency, as you're seeing in Canada, you have hundreds of billions of dollars coming up. It's not backed by anything. It's not backed by gold. It's backed by GDP. It's backed by your tax dollars. That's what they're assuming is going to pay off this debt. They're just arbitrarily printing money, and they're not doing it based on off anything other than what Keynesian economic principles and spend theory. At least Bitcoin gives an opportunity to say, no, you have to hold it and peg it against something that has scarce value. They used to have it for gold for 5,000 years. So I think these countries are looking at it from more than just trying to tether themselves away from the central bank. It's we need something to stop our hyperinflation. I think Argentina saw 192% hyperinflation in a year. That's government corruption on an epic scale.
Totally.
And I know we have.
I think this is after party material. He's really telling us.
All right. Well, if you guys want to talk economics and Bitcoin,
Thanks,
find us
everyone.
after.